And welcome back to another episode of Life in Prison. My name is Zach, and today what we're going to be talking about is the daily life in prison. Everyone's routine in prison is different. Every prison is different. Every individual in prison is different. I did on a daily basis in prison. So, first, we'll go ahead and start with jail, since that's where everything starts. Everything before prison comes jail. 2011. Back on felony pod at ERJ, Eastern Regional Jail in Martinsburg. So my cellie was actually an old head dog at the time before he got stripped, Donnie. And with having Donnie as my cellie when I first got locked up, it was, I knew Donnie on the streets. I knew his brother Ziggy. I knew his brother Julio. You know, he hung out with Cody. I'd interviewed him in a previous video. You know, these are old head dogs that they've been around the way for many long time. So it just so happened that whenever I got locked up, you know, Donnie just happened to come in on a dope charge that honestly all got rounded up in. The only reason why I'm about to talk about this is because it's actually been in the newspaper and everything got put out in the open. So at the time, Donnie was with this chick named Jen, and he had gotten a medical slip for toothpaste for sensitive teeth. So he had his girl send in, you know, medicated toothpaste into the jail. But what was really going on was she took the toothpaste, emptied it all out. Then she had stuck little balls of dope stuck in the container, took some box and rolled it up, you know, in plastic, stuck it in the container, and 20 and 30 of these things, and then proceeded to put the toothpaste back in the container, stuck it back in the box, glued the edges of the box so it looked like it was brand new from the medical facility, and sent it in. Now that you got dope and Suboxone, now cigarettes come. And there was a few people that was hitting in the jail at the time. Actually, for anybody that's been incarcerated around this area, there's a few names that get thrown around, you know, they've been locked up for years, and everyone just knows who they are. So, Kevin Hairston, Big Kev, you know, Robo Smoker. Is one of the biggest crackheads you would ever see. When I say big, this dude was, I don't know, 6'1", 6'2", about 270 pounds straight muscle. This dude was, you know, at the time was in his 50s, but he looked like he was in his 30s. He'd done bukus of prison time. Kevin Hairston is one of those guys who everyone knows. He's a crackhead. He will tell you he's a crackhead. He will rob you. He'll tell you he's going to rob you before he robs you. Not many dudes messed with him just because he was, you know, he's an informant. Everyone knows Kevin Hairston is a rat. With my own two eyes, captains and corporals and lieutenants come into the pod, hand this man packs of cigarettes, hamburgers, chewing tobacco. Like, they gave this man whatever he wanted. The COs were scared of him because, you know, he was a violent man. What he would do is he slapped people. But it wasn't just slap. When he slapped these individuals, he kind of knocked them out. He would give the people that worked at the jail information. So in return, they would give him anything he wanted, practically anything. So Donnie would get the cigarettes through, you know, Big Kev. I'd plunge the toilet every morning. So this is what we would do. In the morning, get up for chow. You know, at the regional, breakfast comes about 6 o'clock. Get up for chow. Grab me and Donnie's tray. By the time I get up, he's already got the toilet plunged. We can go ahead and smoke a cigarette. And let me apologize before we even go, because all of us here at the house, myself included, have been dealing with a nice little cold. Don't worry, I got tested for COVID. They dug my brains out. Like, I don't have the COVID. get done smoking a cigarette, after breakfast, go back to bed. Wake up, 10 o'clock, shower, go get ready, wash your face. At the regional, it's not as political as it is in prison. You got a couple Bloods here, a couple Crips there, a couple DMI members here. Not too many other ones up here in Martinsburg. You got some GDs here and there, some BDs scattered here about, but it's nothing like it's not heavy around this area. So you don't really have to do any politicking during the day at the regional. Everyone just kind of sticks to themselves because they either waiting for trial, they going through trial right now, they waiting to get sentenced. Like, a lot of people in the jail is kind of laid back. There's a little bit more fights. The pod I was in was kind of cool. I had little dude named Bones, Brian Schamberg, he was on my pod. Tracy, he was on my pod. Let's see. Grantham, Thomas Grantham. We had Onk, Big Kev, Bank Robber. He was on our pod. Bank Robber was a funny dude. Ended up getting sentenced, go back to sentence pod. I was back there on the pod with Big Kev. Then Starlito, my man Keon. I ain't gonna say his last name. He from Baltimore. He called a Fed case. He got hit with 85 grams of dope in the Martinsburg motel up here. This is years back. And so me and Keon, we was cellies, man. Me and him. Now this is the only time I had a cellie. The only time I ever had a cellie was at the regional. After I got to prison, I was a single cell. Me having my escape and the affiliation kept me a single cell. So I was loving the single cell the whole time. So in the regional though, it was me and Keon, and me and that man got into everything. Like in the pod, Kev was one of those guys that he's broke. He has no money, but he's big. He can come onto a pod. Within a week, he would literally be running that pod. He'd be running a poker table, have $500 in the poker, in the poker stash. He'd have a full-blown store, $700 in the store, and he'd have a pocket full of cigarettes. And he didn't even smoke. Kev didn't smoke, but he got these cigarettes from the COs, and then he'd sell those off to make money. So Kev's one of those dudes, just like, if he didn't like that you was following rules, or if he was being too loud, there's nothing you could do. You would be kicked off that pod. He held more power than a lot of these COs. Like, and I'm not just saying that. Like, I'm being serious. Me and Keon, we only get so many dollars from home. If Kev was like, hey man, old boy was being too loud, go smack him. Got you, Big Kev. Gone. We was Kev's little minions there for a little bit. After that, I got shipped out to the Anthony Center real quick. Because I'd gotten sentenced at the beginning of the year. And with the Anthony Centers, you have to be 18 to 21. Alright, so my birthday, I was turning 22 February. So I got sentenced January. So they ended up shipping me up to Anthony Center before I hit that age frame. Because if you're up there and then, you go into 22 and then 23, it's fine because you're already up there. But you can't be 22 before you go up there. It's real weird. Getting shipped out there. As I said before, 3 months. Lasted 3 months. Got sent back to the regional. Sat there for a couple months. Had to wait for a bunk to get open because in prison, what people don't realize is you have so many beds in prison, okay? And now they're even overpopulated. So until a bunk comes open, you're just sitting there. You have to wait. You can't do anything. You're sitting in the regional. Some people wait there for years just waiting for a bunk. So with me, having a 1 to 10, but a 1 to 10 that's classified as a 5. So now I have to go to a maximum security prison because I'm classified as a 5. So I would have got shipped out a lot earlier if I was able to go to work release, any prison without a fence, Pernytown, Salem, Northern Regional. That's a check-in place. They probably want to send me there, but you know what I'm saying? Huttonsville opens up. So when I finally get to Huttonsville, My daily activity consisted of I'd get up for breakfast. I'd go eat breakfast and get back to the pod. Now, during the morning, what I wanted to do, if I didn't have a job, what I wanted to do is get everything done in the morning. Go work out in the morning. That way you have all day to do whatever you need to do, whether it be classes, whether it be politics, whatever it may be. So I'd get up, go to chow, go back to the pod, and kick it with my brothers or everybody. Mind you, anybody that knows me, and not a person can't vouch for this. Everyone that's ever been locked up with me knows that I talked to everybody. Every single last person. I didn't care if he was blood, if he was a Crip, if he was a skinhead, if he was an Odinist. I didn't care if he was Mexican Mafia. I didn't care who you was. As long as you didn't have a sex charge, I talked to you. At the end of the day, it's always about networking. Who you know and what you know. Knowledge is first and foremost. So, instead of shutting everybody off, now if I conversate with them, there might not be any issues. Or now I might know something I didn't know before, know something that we didn't know before, that can change a lot of things. Especially if, as I said, prison it's a lot of drama and politics. And people like to start things because they get bored. So there's been plenty of times I've seen, people give false information just to see a fight or see a stabbing just because they want to see something happen. And honestly, in my eyes, I'll do something, but it has to be justified. It has to be for a reason, right? Around lunchtime, that's when the whole prison started waking up. After lunch, we'd go out to the big yard. A lot of the DMI members, that's where we would congregate because, there was a lot of us. There was a lot. And even though there was about 50 to 60% of us in the hole most of the time, we may have only had 40, 50 people on the yard at any given time, but another 40 and 50 back in the hole, it's kind of hard. And whenever I came into a position where where my opinions would be heard and actually people would listen to them, you got to be here before you get here, you know what I'm saying? So after a while, after I proved who I was and that I was reliable and my heart was where it needs to be at, you know what I'm saying? People have to prove things first. And at the time, my thing was always, there's no point in doing dummy missions. We're here for a reason. We don't want to stay here, though. This is where we may have been born at, but you don't always want to live your life here, though. You always want to prosper and want more. So, even being in these situations is no different. So we'd hold meetings down in the big yard just because if you get grouped up in bunches of 5 or more, then a lot of the COs would try to disperse you because they didn't want you to hold meetings and stuff. So the big yard, it was a little bit different because you got the baseball fields and you got the softball fields and stuff. So you could group up. So we'd go out there, have our little meetings and whatnot. Being out in the big yard, mind you, this is a funny part. So out in the big yard, they had these picnic tables. But what they messed up with the picnic tables was they never removed the nails. So the first knife I ever made was actually from the big yard. So we had pried the nails up out of the picnic tables, and how we had I explained with the shoes earlier. Whenever we'd come in from the big yard, they'd pat us down and run us through the metal detectors. So as I said before, with the shoes, all you need to do is take the nail, stick the nail on the inside of your sole. There'd be a little divot in there. Put the insole back in, so when they go and hit your shoe, they're not going to hear the nail. They're not going to be able to hear anything of the nail. So I started bringing in nails. Started making some knives, and after a while, I got pretty nice making knives. After you start getting hit, that's when they start, realizing who's got the knives, who's going to use the knives and stuff. There was a situation. His last name was White. He was an inmate. He ended up getting poked up on the center yard. Not too long after I showed up there. They had a good idea. There was a few of us out in the center yard, and dude got poked up. I'd gotten in a little situation. I'd got in trouble. So with our shorts, we have shorts that are in prison that you can buy, and at the waistband took the drawstring out. So how you would be able to walk around with your knife in prison and not really get hit with it too much. So you take the knife and slip it in the hole of your waistband, so now it's sideways. Well, I dropped it one time. I'd actually dropped it outside of a cell because I was doing something. I forget if I was making a meal or something, but I dropped it and didn't realize it. So this knife is sitting out front of this outsider. Anyone who's not in your circle is considered an outsider. So I dropped the knife in front of an outsider's cell door. He'd found it, picked it up, and didn't know who dropped it, but seen that there was a group of us outside of his door. So he just grabbed one of us and was like, hey, look, is this one of y'all's? You don't want to drop your knife. Ever. At all. Period. Don't ever do it. Go to the barber shop. The barber shop is one of those places you go to get information from people. Most of the barbers lived up on B2, so if you needed stuff shipped over to the other side of the prison during the day, you can't really go over there. So the barbershop is one of those middle way places, like north and south side go to the barbershop on different days. So we'd go down there, kind of like at a barbershop out here, to go down there, kick it, talk crap to people and stuff like that. Go down there and bet. I wasn't a betting person, but I like going down there and getting as much information as I could. Go down the gym. South side normally goes and north side normally goes. That's honestly the only time that, if you're in a gang unit, the only time you're going to go with any other pods anywhere is if it's the center yard or if it's the big yard in the gym. Other than that, B2 is doing things by themselves because we're off on a whole different section of the prison, because the gang unit and the whole segregation are actually the only new parts of the prison. All the other parts of the prison are older. The gang unit is recently built. It's all brand new. So we're off by ourselves. Walking around the prison, trying to get connections. To be honest with you, as I said before, prison isn't for reform, unfortunately. As much as I like to say it is, and as much as it actually opened my eyes to want to do better things, prison's not for reform. It's a breeding ground. It is a breeding ground for criminals and convicts. As I said, you go in knowing 20% and you come out knowing 90% of criminal activity. Like, you find out slicker ways to get, things over here, and faster ways to get things over there, and cheaper ways to get this. Some prisons do offer classes and stuff, anger management and college courses and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's all an individual. So, it's no different trying to run around trying to make money. Another thing is trying to find shoes and stuff. How it's set up is everything's put on your books. So if you come in with a pair of white Nikes, that's exactly the description that your books will have. So as long as you have any type of white Nikes, when they check your books, you'll be fine. So me, I had a pair of white Nikes. So what I always try to do was try to find some shoes, but you gotta realize shoes and watches is one of those things that if you didn't have, $400, $500, $600, $700 for shoes or for these watches and stuff, you weren't being able to get anything unless you had other things. As I said before, I'd stay up on the pod, I'd go play Xbox, I'd congregate with everybody, and I went to medical, went down to commissary. Commissary, you could order $75 a week as long as you're behaved. along with having an Xbox in your cell or PlayStation in your cell. As long as you behaved, you were able to have these things. But if you lost your privileges, then they'd go ahead and take the stuff. They didn't have cable in the cells. They only had it out in the day room. So, but on every other pod, it wasn't like that. So, up on B2 on the gang unit, if you wanted to watch TV, you had to go out to the TVs in the pod. Now, this is where it kind of got difficult. So when you first walk into B2, you see pod and then steps. So at the first set of stairs, that's where the black TV was, right at the front. They had TVs back to back, so there were two groups of people that sit there and watch TV, and they had another TV off to the side, and that was like a gaming TV. It was a community gaming TV. You grab your Xbox or your PlayStation, come out here, hook it up, and play. Then on the far end side of the pod at the very back, that's where the white TV was. And honestly, it didn't matter if he was black or white. Like, don't go up there and just grab the remotes and start changing it. That's a no-no. I went to both TVs, but it wasn't out of fear. It was just out of respect. Because, like I said, I messed with everybody. You know what I mean? I didn't pretend to be this or pretend to be that. Everyone liked me just because I try to make people laugh. And, I was just accepted for who I was. I was white boy, more or less. Now, don't get me wrong, some people didn't agree with the name. It's kind of weird. Yeah, it's awkward. It's different. But at the end of the day, in prison, I don't want you to know my name. So, a lot of names don't make sense. Like, there was a lot of dudes that I was locked up with that had the name Stacks or Bills or Kilo. But at the end of the day, they was out here smoking drugs, getting high, and making no money. So at the end of the day, I'm like, my name don't make sense, but yours sure as hell does not make any sense at all. Someone had asked me if I'd brought anything home from prison with me, and that's one of the rules in prison. It's like whenever you leave, right? Even if you have absolutely nothing on the streets, they write you a check, and you don't take anything home with you. If you got shoes, you leave it for the next man. If you got your Xbox, you leave it and you grandfather it off to somebody. Which grandfathering off, what you can either do is just give it to somebody, but you take the chance of down the road them, getting shook down, and when they, look on their books to make sure it's on there and it's not, they're going to take it. So now it's trash. What people do is you go to the tattoo man and get him to get his gun. Everything, any CD player, Walkman, Xbox, PlayStation, boombox, tablet, they have your inmate ID number carved into them. They actually do that in the front at intake. They have a little gun that they put your number in. So when the COs come in and they look at your things, instead of them walking around with a book that has everyone's name in it with all their stuff in it, they just pick up the CD player and make sure it's the same number that the inmate lives in the cell. So, if you go ahead and buy something, you just go ahead and scratch the number off, get the tattoo man to go embroider your number on there, and now it's yours. Hygiene stuff. The only thing that I'd ever brought home for me was years ago. And it's the original, I think I've worn out once. The original Bob Barker. The reason why I keep that is just, it's just kind of a reminder, what I'm saying, where life could actually take you. One small decision, you might think it's not that big, but next thing you know, you're waking up in the jail. I couldn't draw, so I never ended up drawing. I couldn't make music, so I didn't rap. Normally, I just, sat there and clicked up with people and just talked. Read a lot of books. Dan Brown. Dan Brown's one of my favorite writers. You know, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. He was the director of that. You know, Da Vinci Code is kind of what got me into it, and I've read all the Harry Potter books front to back multiple times. Like, you know, reading is definitely one of those escapes. After dinner time, around 4 or 5 o'clock, after dinner time came around, you know, go back to the pod. That's when everything started winding down. TV shows started coming on. That's when, you know, we go out to the big yard again, or go out to the center yard and just smoke, you know, the Snape, and just kick it, kind of like you would at home if you were on the front porch, chilling with your homeboys, just smoking as the day goes by. That's kind of like what we did. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of situations, and if something popped off, like being on a gang unit, even if you may not have something to do with something, if a whole nother organization is beefing with people, the whole pod is on tense mode. And anybody that's ever been locked up knows what I'm talking about. Everything gets all quiet. People start grouping up. Normally, if you go out into the pod, you know, it's not really segregated at all. You might have the group of dudes that like messing with boys. You know, they might be off by themselves, just, you know, talking amongst themselves. You know, people didn't really pay them no mind. You know what I'm saying? It's, in my head, at the end of the day, it's your choice. I got along with everybody, like I said. As long as you wasn't a baby toucher or a baby toucher, yeah, I didn't care who you was. Everyone would start grouping up, so there'd be all the bloods would just kind of get at the picnic table over there and be grouped up, and they'd just be watching everybody. You knew when something was about to go down. Most stuff didn't go on too much on B2, because you got to realize most of these dudes up on B2 are there for a reason. They're not going to be able to go off to any other pod in the prison most of the time. So the saying goes, you don't shit where you sleep. It's kind of like the same thing. Not too many people would steal from people up on B2. Now, it was here and there was a lot of the dumb ones that got put on stupid missions. They end up stealing and they end up getting fucked up. But not too many that went on. You didn't hear too many of the name calling, like the whores and the bitches. You didn't hear that. Not too many people were going out their name, just because you got to realize almost everyone up there is affiliated. So they didn't really put too many soft people up on this unit. Now, yeah, you know, not everyone's a killer, obviously, and not everyone's a soldier, obviously, but they try not to put the weak up there. And the moment that they did put a weak person up there, it was like you smelled it the moment they walked in the door. Like you knew what was going on. A lot of time what we do, what took up most of our day is, so if you were a baby raper, we couldn't touch you. And if we did end up beating you up, then we're going to the hole and we're going to get ad sick. So, and what you don't want to do is, whenever people talk about extortion, what you don't want to do is go up there and strong arm somebody. You don't want people to know that they're getting extorted or that you're taking advantage of them. So how you would play a game for these people to not want to check in and leave, because if you extort somebody, if you scare them, all they're going to do is check out, and now your foreign money is gone. You don't want that to happen. So how you play game in is, you say, it was me and another individual, right? I would go and befriend the child toucher or soft person or whoever it may be, right? I'd go and befriend them. You know, get to know them. This isn't like a right away thing. This is spread out across weeks. You know what I'm saying? Go get to know them, talk to them, you know, befriend them and whatnot. Then my cohort would now intervene, and while I'm not around, he would go impress them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not tell me he needs to pay anything, but intimidate him, scare him. You know what I'm saying? Don't mention anything about money, though. Alright, after that situation's done, now I come back into the picture. And regardless if he brings up or not, I'm gonna bring it up. Like, hey man, is old dude bothering? What's going on? And most times, like, yeah, man, he said that, he called me this, called me that, saying I'm gonna be food or whatever. And that's when I'd intervene and be like, man, don't worry about him. But during all this process, you gotta instill it into their brain that you don't have money. You got to make them think that you don't have any money at all. But you don't ask them for anything either, though. Just, yeah, I can't go to the store. I ain't got no money. So now that he's gotten pressed, I would then go up to him and be like, don't worry about him. I'll make sure that, I got you. I'll make sure that, I'll tell him to fall back. Now they feel obligated to give you something in return. And 90% of the time, they're going to offer you food or money. Like, all right, well, you know what? I get $100 a week. I don't really use all this money. So just go ahead and, if you need some things, just go ahead and give me a list every week and I got you. And then now that it's been offered to you, they don't think that you're taking advantage of them. You know what I'm saying? No one's going to get in trouble for getting kicked off the pod because you're now a bully. So there's a couple of ways you can extort people, and you always want to think long term, especially if you're going to extort somebody. You got to think long term extortion. You don't want to do it quick and get a quick $50 because then what? Now you have to blow down somebody else, and there's only so many people that come up on B2. Like I said, they try not to put baby rapers up there because they know what's going to happen, so they try to leave them alone. So during the day, going collecting money, or just kicking back and watching Naked and Afraid, or TMZ, like, playing Xbox, just bullcrapping, not doing much of anything. I actually befriended this dude. So he's a young individual. His name is Cali. His real name is Trayvon Strange. So he's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to start this whole YouTube channel thing also. So he caught a murder charge in his early 20s. Alright, end up shooting an individual in their head, killing them. The individual had made a sexual comment on one of Cali's relatives. Now, some of you may say he might have taken it overboard. Everyone's different. Everyone's got a different mindset. People were raised in different environments. You're a product of your environment. And, he's from San Diego, California. He's a Crip from out west. They deal with things differently, I guess. So he ended up shooting dude in the head at a very young age. So now he is he's serving a life sentence with the possibility of parole. So after 15 years, he'll be eligible for parole. And it's hard because he's in the hole a lot, because up in Mount Olive there's a lot of politics that's going on. So he's always in the hole for some fighting or some stabbing stuff. And what I want to do is have conversations with him and, to film it, to give you guys a first-hand look of what it's actually like to do life in prison. Especially up in Mount Olive, which is, the maximum state prison for West Virginia prison systems. Right now we're in the process of trying to get that going on so I can start, recording conversations with us to share with you guys. And he's a young man that he's got about 6-7 left to the board now. He's already done a good bit of, amount of his time. He's 27 now. His story's just like everyone else's that's, been put in a situation that they, regret now. But that's what we want to get out to you guys. It's that, always think before you act. You may not think this is a big decision or whatnot, but one little instance can change the whole course of your life. Now you're sitting behind bars. Some people have the opportunities to get out, some other people don't. And you always just want to take a negative situation and try to turn it into a positive. I also got a buddy who actually makes these t-shirts, so I've known him for years. Caleb Wilkerson. So it's Stone Collective. Got the cross joints. The back, I like it. It's got the cross joints done collective, and then with the t-shirt maker, great quality shirts. They feel great. You know, I support him and his brand. He's getting into the cannabis field, you know, and it's big. It's big, and it's not even tapped in yet around here. And the brand that he's pushing, you know, I like it a lot. You know, I represent him a lot. I've worn one of his t-shirts in my other videos, a short sleeve t-shirt. This is actually long. It's actually long sleeve. This is a new one. He just dropped this off to me the other day. I went and picked it up. No, I greatly appreciate it. I know you watch my videos. Matter of fact, you need to get on your YouTube stuff too, man. You slacking. I don't know, I'm gonna put you on blast here for a second. I love you, bro, though. I appreciate the t-shirt again. You know, people have these dreams, and even a lot of successful people have been in, you know, bad situations, but they turn that negative experience around to be able to pave the path for a brighter future. You know, digging through the mud just until you can get on top of the deck is, you know, it's an everyday thing. It happens all the time. But I don't ever want you guys to give up on anything. You know, at least try to say you did, because if not, then you can't say you even tried at all. What I want you to do, as always, if you haven't done it, hit that subscribe button. Then also hit the bell notifications button so you're first informed when I upload. I'm gonna cut this one short. I'm not feeling too good. You can hear it's all this. It's all this. Definitely more to come though. You've got negativity in the social media. You have it at work. You have it at school. Sometimes you have it at home. It's hard living life in a positive aspect when all you have is negativity around you. So if there's any negativity, you gotta cut it. You gotta cut it completely off. So until next time, I send my utmost love, loyalty, and respect. Have a nice day.